don't be afraid to walk up and talk to somebody that you might think is too big to talk to you, or pick up the phone and call somebody that you're like, oh man, they would never want to talk to me. It's amazing. This industry is a very niche industry, but even the leaders of this business, of this industry, they all are open to helping and supporting each other. And I've not ever seen anybody say, no, I'm not going to help you, or no, I don't know how to help you. So I think just being open to asking questions and being humble and really just trying to make a difference while also supporting, and don't be afraid to just pick up the phone and call people. Pick up the phone and call me. I'm always available. I love talking to people about the industry, and nobody has all the answers. So
Sure.
by asking questions to a variety of different people, you're going to get a variety of different answers. And then you can decide what is the best one that fits your specific situation.
Hello, and welcome to the Elevator Careers Podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group. I am your host, Matt Allred. In this podcast, we talk to the people whose lives and careers are dedicated to the vertical transportation industry to inform and share lessons learned, building upon the foundation of those who have gone before to inspire the next generation of elevator careers. Today, our guest is Sean Madden, currently the Innovation Manager at Southern Elevator. Sean grew up in the industry but went to college for engineering, believing he would work on airplanes. Instead, he fell in love with elevators. In 2010, Sean started Madden Elevator in Louisville, Kentucky, and he is currently serving as the president of the National Association of Elevator Contractors. Sean is passionate about the elevator industry and has created the Elevator Strategic Hub with a mission to empower elevator business owners to develop strategic solutions, allowing them to sleep better at night without worrying about their business. All right, Sean, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, Matt.
I'm excited to be able to chat with you. I know, we've met a few times at different conventions, conferences, but I'm excited to talk a little bit more and get more in depth into your story and your journey. You've had certainly an interesting ride in the elevator industry.
Yeah, funny way you put that. Interesting ride. No, it's definitely been very beneficial. It's been a great career. I tell people I'm kind of lucky. I've had the perfect progression because I came up in the field, spent about a third of my career in the field, moved into supervision and management, spent about a third of my career in that, and
Yeah.
then later on had the opportunity to start a business, get into executive management, leadership, and ran a business for 13 years. So really been fortunate and had a great progression in the industry.
Right. Right. You've kind of done it all. How did you initially get started as a mechanic? Was that something you aspired to, or did it just kind of come to you?
Yeah, interesting. My dad was an elevator mechanic for Otis Elevator for 22
Okay.
years.
Okay.
And when I was a kid, I used to go out on calls with him when I was a teenager, and didn't think I was going to get in elevators. It was kind of fun. One little funny quick story. We were at this hospital, and it was a mental hospital. And I'm a kid, and he's like, I'm running the car for him. He's up in the machine room working on the
Right.
elevator, and he's like, whatever you do, don't go to the third floor. What's a kid gonna do? So I the third floor, and the doors opened up, and this guy in a football helmet was standing there, and he saw the doors open, and then he went in the 3-point stance and started running towards the elevator door. And I'm hitting door closed, door closed. And he saw upstairs I went to that floor. He set me up. He knew exactly what was going to happen. The guy come flying across the door into the back of the cab, and then he just got up and ran back over. And I'm like, "Come on, go to the next floor." And I got upstairs, and I was totally white. And he's like, "Told you not to go to the third floor." It's like, you set me
Meet
up, Dad.
meet some interesting characters on the third floor, don't you?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was we had a lot of fun going out on calls, and he taught me a lot about elevators even as a teenager. Believe it or not, I started getting interested in it, and then I didn't think I was going to get in the industry. I thought, you know, I'll just go and do, get into engineering. I actually
Right.
went to college for engineering, and but then I was like, just kind of fell in love with it. I got lucky. I was, don't tell the IRS this, but I was 16 working on elevators
Sure.
out of a Jeep CJ5 in Daytona Beach, Florida. And I just kind of kept falling in love with it. And, it's not bad to be 16 riding up and down the beach of Daytona Beach working on elevators. So really just got great opportunities as I was going to college and just fell in love with it. It was an industry that my dad, fell into, got lucky to get into, and I just got opportunities as I was growing in the industry.
So even though you didn't think you would land there, as you were kind of working part time, and it sounds like working through college, it's like, okay, this is where I want to be.
Yeah, so I went to college for electrical engineering. I actually thought I was going to work on planes.
Sure.
I was going to do something different. Um, just kept getting opportunities on the elevator side. I got an opportunity to install a couple of elevators when I was in college in Ponce de Leon in Daytona Beach. And
Nice.
they were like, hey, if you install these elevators under time, then we'll give you like a $4 an hour raise. I'm like, oh, I could do that. Never installed an elevator in my life, but I've been around elevators. I knew a lot of elevator people. Like I can ask enough questions to figure this out.
So do
And
I dare even ask about that? So you said you hadn't installed one. I'm curious, was like ownership that said, "Hey, install it"? I mean, maybe I don't want to ask too many questions, right? Because I'm like, how does that happen?
there's some information about that in my book, but yeah, so I had been around elevators a long time. Had enough people I knew that could
Sure.
come by and help me out and support me and guide
Right.
me. There's prints and there's drawings, and I did have some good mentors through that. My dad stopped by the job site every day. I had a boss, Irvin Charles, that stopped by now and then, and so there was enough support mechanisms around me
See that.
to help ensure I did a good quality job. But it was definitely an experience. And working, I was young, so I was working a lot of hours and figuring out how to get things done. I got done at like 55% and 60 something
Wow.
percent. It was pretty wild. But my helper wasn't there a lot of the time because it was, even back then, it was a struggle to find helpers in the 90s.
Wow. Yeah. So did that kind of cement your desire to get in the industry and make a career out of it?
Interestingly, it might have actually went the opposite way because even though the installation was fun, it was very challenging. And, I love working hard, but I got opportunity to do some drilling. So I was doing uh, hydraulic drilling
Sure.
with
Sure.
what they call big bam bam rigs. So that was fun. I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed getting dirty. But I was like, this is cool and this is fun, but I want to do something inspiring, something different, something, just I actually had a really good mind for electronics, I guess, because
Sure.
my dad taught it to me at an early age, and I just caught on quick. So when I went to college and was going through and building PLCs, I actually thought I was going to design and build an elevator. That was one of the ideas I
That's
had
cool.
as I was
Yeah.
going through college and do a PLC and could do ladder logic on a PLC. So I thought I was going to get into all that stuff, but it never went down that path. And I guess when it really changed is I got an opportunity to go to Atlanta and be an area representative in I was 21 years old, 1996. The Olympics were
Yeah.
there.
Sure.
I had no clue what I was doing, but I went there and worked hard and tried to make a difference. And I feel like I did make a difference. But that's when I really kind of fell in love with it. I was like, you know what? I'm making a difference, and I'm seeing that the hard work and the efforts that I'm putting towards this, and I have some background and knowledge now, and I
Right.
have enough resources around me to support me that I was really heading into an area where I enjoyed, and then I had an opportunity to go back to what I call home, which is Kentucky, and I ended up getting to go back there. My dad knew somebody that he worked with after he got out of the union with Otis, and he said, "Just call this guy; he'll bring you up, and maybe you can find a job with him." And I was able to put together something where I came in as an adjuster, and he
Okay.
became a really good mentor of mine. It's actually the late Roger Irvin. I don't know if you
Okay.
all have heard of him, but he was a great mentor of mine. He actually helped me, do a really good quality job on the work I was doing on the adjusting and attention to detail. And then he helped me. by giving me the tools and learning and growing the support. And then I moved into supervision and management in his company
Right.
and was running operation as his business. So
What
that's really
business
what
was
kind
that
of
that he
fell in love
was
with it.
running? What was that business?
I'm sorry, he had an elevator company called Urban Elevator, and it was a small independent service company that we grew. And ironically, we grew it from the time I was there in '97 until 2002 when we sold it to a private equity firm. And so I went through a transition and worked for a private equity firm back then too. And it was just, he was a great guy and just really helped me understand business coupled with elevators. And it's really, one of the best mentors I've ever had.
Cool. That's it's hard to say enough about people like that that really make that kind of impact, and that's it sounds like he did.
He did. Him and my dad both. My dad was obviously a mentor of mine, and my dad knew he knew business, he knew the service side, he knew the electronic side, and he taught me everything I knew about troubleshooting and technology. And then Roger also came from technology side. He did some controller engineering and stuff.
Right.
But then when he went into business, he learned a lot about the business side. And coupling that with my dad's knowledge really just helped me grow as a person. The people ask me sometimes who's been your mentors. Well, it's obviously oftentimes your dad, and
Sure.
then somebody that made a difference and an impact on my dad's life that he connected me to, Roger Urban. And then most of the rest of them have been like books.
Sure.
Roger connected me with Dale Carnegie,
Cool. Yeah.
and I went through this. I think it was a 16-week course back then, and it was about how to win friends and influence people
Sure.
and how to start living and stop worrying. And when I started going into that, I was like, you know what, this is just, another class. I'll get what I can out of it. But I always engaged in class and wanted to get as much as I could out of it. That class actually changed my life,
Wow.
dramatically changed my life in a positive way. I looked at life totally different after going through that.
What were some of your biggest takeaways that you say, really shifted that for you?
Biggest takeaways were when I first looked at the class, I was thinking it was a manipulation class.
Sure.
But what I learned as I went through the class is it's not as much of a manipulation as it is about learning to listen empathically, learning to understand people instead of always trying to listen to respond,
Right.
because that's often what we do in this world. So that was one of the biggest pieces. And then the second one was probably that I had a choice,
Mhm.
how to start living and stop worrying. I oftentimes got frustrated with stuff. I had a short temper. I'm a redhead. So oftentimes I let the world control my decisions about how I felt about stuff. But after going through that class and understanding it, it's like, no, you can choose how you want to look at that. You can choose whether you're going to make a difference and say, listen, the world did that to me, or whether you're
Sure.
going to look at it and go, you know what? That's just something that happened. It's a stepping stone. I'm glad that happened. Let me learn from it, figure out how I can improve it and not let it happen again. And when I was able to change that mindset, I think that's really what changed my mind from field mentality to leadership and management, understanding that piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, that's cool. And thank you for bringing that up. I remember reading that book years ago, and I remember being surprised at how it said you don't need to criticize other people because they already, in their mind they're doing the right thing. And that was kind of a huge shift for me to think, okay, I guess I can try to see things from other people's perspectives. And sounds like that
Yeah.
really helped you be able to step into a leadership role.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought I could solve the world when I came out of the class, I could fix anything, but you learn it's not quite that simple. And it's a continual battle. You're
Sure.
continually sharpening the saw. That was one of Stephen Covey's, he was
Sure.
another mentor of mine, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So I set out to just continually learn, continually grow, continually sharpen the saw, continually get better. And I just realize in the field and in business and in management leadership, it's a continual battle. Like you're never going to feel like you know everything. You're always going to get humble. And I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that because you're always learning. And I said out a long time ago that I'm on a lifelong learning journey.
Right. Well, and as soon as you aren't learning, maybe you know it all, right? Your life, you're kind of done, right? Because there's always
Exactly.
something to learn. I mean, you'll never know anybody that knows it all. So at some point you then shifted. You said you'd started in the field about a third of your career and then management. At what point did you say, "Hey, I'm gonna start my own company"?
So I was about 16 years old, believe it or not.
When you made that decision, you said you were going to do your own thing at some point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what happened is I was running service in Daytona. Um, Somebody my dad knew owned an elevator company. He wasn't working with him. He just owned a small company. I was having lunch with my dad. It's at the Mayan Inn. There was a little ocean deck restaurant bar right on the beach there, and I remember like being there. And this guy said, I want you to buy my business," and I was like, I don't know anything about business. I got a lot to learn, and I need to, set out to learn that. But, I really appreciate the offer. And he's like, "No, I'll teach you everything you know." And I said, "Really appreciate the offer, but, it's way too early." I guess he saw something in me.
What
But I
business was
remember
this? Was this an
it was
elevator
an
business?
independent elevator service
Okay.
business. He had
Cool.
about, 500 elevators,
And you were
and he
16 at
serviced
the time.
elevators. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't know if he's talked to my dad, saw something in me, whatever. But I was so young. I was like, you know what? That's pretty cool that he owns an elevator business. And my dad had owned an elevator business for a short while, TNR Elevator. And I said, you know what? I think I will do that. When I'm going to go to college and I'm going to work on planes and I'm going to do some of this other stuff, but I think I will set out to learn all the aspects of elevators and eventually own my own business. And I really didn't think it would actually pan out as great as it did because, it's kind of like it just flowed into the perfect progression throughout my career, and
Right.
opportunities kept coming in at the right times. Some of them I created myself, but
Sure. Sure.
they
That's
were all it just I guess I had said at that time. So I had a kid early in life. He was born the day after my 21st birthday,
right.
and I remember thinking, okay, well, I'm gonna have to put the business on hold. I'll just keep learning and growing, but I'll wait till he gets older. So I planned on then, like maybe when he was 18 years old or after he graduated high school, is when I was gonna open a business, and then just set out and planned on learning everything I could about business through that time, and just kind of put that on the back burner.
Right. Right. So fast forward, what, 20 years, and you're actually starting Madden Elevator. Is that right? And how did that come about?
Yeah. So he was in high school. I think he was a senior in high school, and I planned on starting after he completed high school. Um, had a progression of a variety of things that happened in my career, but I was president of Able Elevator in Louisville, Kentucky, and I was slated to work with the owner to take over that business and buy him out and
Okay.
take over Able Elevator. And we weren't able to come to terms. Then found myself, okay, I'm starting a business from my basement with me and my wife, and no income, and a kid still in high school, and we're going to figure it out. So I come home and told my wife that. She thought I was nuts. And but she's like, you know what? Because she wasn't working either, because she had left her job to stay home with our son Christopher, and her job was having a downturn, so she left to save some people's jobs and didn't really need to work.
Wow. Yeah.
So she left and saved two or three jobs, and then kind of semi-retired until I came home and said, "Hey, we're going to start an elevator business in 2010." And she was like, "Okay, let's do it." She
Wow.
supported me and jumped on the bandwagon, and we just started going to work.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, obviously you had contacts, you had people you knew, but it sounds like a lot of work to get out, knock on doors, and say, "Hey, I'm starting this."
It was, but you know what? The interesting thing about it is it was fun work because it was essentially calling people, meeting with people, answering the phones, talking to people, and helping people solve problems.
Right.
Communication. It was all about communication. And luckily, I had a good progression in my career where detail was very necessary, especially in adjusting elevators.
Sure.
I really was a little anal about, so, if I tell somebody I'm going to call them back, I'm going to call them back. So I put it on my calendar. I never forgot. I always made sure I called them back. I kept track of people's birthdays. I kept track of
Wow.
people's
Yeah.
anniversaries. Now it's a little easier with social media. It pops up. Back then, I had it all on my calendar. So even people that didn't work for me for many, many years, even today, I text people happy former anniversary at Urban Elevator, which was, centuries ago. And they're like,
Right.
wow, how do you still have that stuff? I was just very tedious about that stuff because I thought it was important. And I guess
Right.
Dale Carnegie helped me with that stuff too, thinking through how important those things were. And when I started communicating with people and calling them or leaving them a voicemail and following up with an email and then telling them, hey, I'm going to follow up again at this time. Or if I told them I was going to do something, I did it. And really, just by doing that, it just grew and started growing very quickly because what I see happening sometimes in businesses is people get so busy and they want to do a good job, but then they get so busy and things fall through the cracks and then people get frustrated.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure that didn't happen. So we put the systems and processes in place. Plus, my wife, she was in customer service her whole life. So she made it easy. People loved her. They called her. She was always the happy phone voice, hey, how can I
Right.
help you? What's going on? And, people love that. So
Right.
she was amazing and helped us grow just in that support mechanism too. So I could be out working on elevators and she could be calling me going, you need to go fix an elevator.
Right. Right. No, that's huge. That's huge. And I think that's an amazing thing about the industry is, husband and wife team, you got the tools, go out and, create it. And it sounds like you
Yeah.
did. So you ran that for, like you say, a 30-year career. And then what was it that made you think, hey, maybe it's time to sell after pouring your heart and soul into it?
We never planned on selling the business. Originally thought our son would get in and he would eventually take it over. It ended up not being something he was interested in.
Mhm.
And then we said, we had some other people we were considering that were in the business of, bringing up and bringing mentoring through and taking over. It's just Mark Bullhauer, who started American Elevator Group. He was vice president of Oracle Elevator, and I worked with him back in the day when we sold Urban Elevator to Oracle Elevator and merged
Okay.
Urban Enable. And he's a great guy, and he called me and he'd been asking me for a long time, come on, come part of this plan, come part of this plan, and I kept saying no, no, no. And it was just one day we had some situations happen, and my wife's like, you know what? We bust our butt and we, do everything we have to do to make sure we hit payroll, do everything we have to do to make sure our customers are taken care of. Do you
Sure.
ever consider like just seeing what he'd say? It's like, I could do that. So I went ahead and had a conversation, and the conversation led to, a very aggressive offer. And, we were like, we could work the next 10 years and not make this kind of money. So, maybe it is time to just consider cashing out. And we decided very quickly, like within 30 days, it happened. It was done.
Sure. Wow.
And it was kind of a whirlwind because luckily I was very organized. So I had all my contracts in the PDFs in a file, and I could submit all that stuff digitally very quickly and easily. And they were like, wow, this is, pretty seamless. But I was preparing to, didn't know what would happen in the future, but I also kept it all for the banks and, just making sure that I was prepared and had everything in order. And it just worked out really well. And we were able to put it together in a quick amount of time and, join the American Elevator Group gang.
Right. Right. So,
Right.
I mean, when that happened, were you still running the business? Did you find yourself with nothing to do? I mean, you've obviously had a little bit of a transition since then. So I'm curious how that went over.
Yeah, that was a huge transition because, when you're over everything for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden, you're you have one focus, which they made me vice president of business development, and my focus was to manage the sales team and
Sure.
grow the business, which was great. And they merged Madden Elevator and Able Elevator and DC Elevator all into one conglomeration in Louisville, Kentucky. So that was an experience just going through that again. I had went through Urban Elevator and Able Elevator merging together in Louisville, Kentucky, and now it was Madden and Able and DC all merging together. So it was quite interesting experience. And then we had an opportunity where a friend of mine down in Florida had a business that was growing and he needed some support and help. And he ended up with long COVID and he needed some support. And we had a place that's like 15 minutes from him. So
Oh, yeah.
I was able to come down and take on that and help him, organize the place and get it going in a good direction because he was having to be off a lot.
Right.
And, I was working a lot during the week, but because we had a place in Florida, it was a simple transition. And then on the weekends, I had a boat at the end of our building. So I would go out on the boat and float and just hang out and think about what my next steps are and, what's life going to bring next and, what do I want to do and how do I want to give back to the industry?
Was that a little weird to step away? I mean, it's one thing to sell it, right? But I assume you were still in it. But then when your friend says, "Hey, I need help in Florida," to just walk out the doors and realize, that's all in the past.
Yeah, it was definitely different. I was there. We closed July 31st and I was there through December.
Yeah.
But in that time, I was really focused on the sales side. I wasn't
Sure.
really running
Sure.
all the day to day of the business. So when the opportunity came up in Florida to go down and run his business, I was actually intrigued because kind of got me back to what, all
I missed
running
it.
day to day and taking care of the overall business. So I was intrigued and went down and worked 7 months and helped get that business in a good place. And we worked really well together. He got better and was able to come back in and we were able to help support each other and grow that business and it's still growing today. So that was an exciting time. But being in Florida was different.
Oh,
I
sure.
hadn't been in Florida since I left in, I guess in the early 2000s or no,
Right.
97.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, it was a weird, like come back around and now you're in Florida working on the other coast. So, but it was fun.
Exactly.
It was fun.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me, you had told me that a lot of, I mean, this, I'll just mention it here. You've written a book called Empowering Elevator Business Owners and Entrepreneurs: Tools, Tips, and Tricks for Growing a Profitable Elevator Service Company. Is that correct?
Yeah. So when I came to Florida and, was working so hard, getting that business in good place, I was also thinking, what's my next steps?
Sure.
So on the weekends when I would go out and float in the bay on the boat, I would even do that at night sometime after work. And I would just go, what's the next steps? What's going to happen? What do I want to do?
Right.
And I was sitting there and I just started writing. I didn't even know exactly what it was going to turn into, but I just started writing my history, how I came up through the industry, the different various things I did. Um, Started writing some stories about those things. And then it was fun. I was enjoying it. Just kind of fell in love with this writing and just kept doing it. And, it took about 6 months and I was just writing and writing. And then after I kind of wrote about my history, then it kind of flowed into, I got this experience or spirit of, I want to give back to the industry. I want to provide information that I've learned over the years because as I was going through this writing, I realized, man, I have done a lot.
Sure.
And I didn't really think about it. You never step back and think about all the stuff you did. So then the second half of the book turned into, okay, these are things that help Madden Elevator be successful,
Right.
tools, tips, and tricks that I learned over the years, and maybe I can help somebody from scraping their face across the concrete by taking one of the tips and empowering it and employing it in their business. So
Right.
it turned into kind of a two-part book. The first part's about my background experience and how I came up in the industry, and the second half is about tools, tips, and tricks, and how we were able to make Madden Elevator successful, which kind of flowed into the next steps.
Right. Right. So, and let's talk a little bit about the next step. So, um, I think you're calling it the Elevator Strategic Hub that you've launched to kind of help people do exactly that. Help business owners, get better at their business and create
Yeah,
essentially what you created.
right. And it kind of, I had been thinking about doing something like this for a couple of years. I
Hmm.
was even doing some coaching when I was at Madden Elevator with other elevator business owners, some people that started up, and some others that was struggling or having problems. So I was just kind of doing some prono coaching and mentoring, and I enjoyed that. Like I didn't realize I would enjoy it as much as I did in supporting them. And even at Madden Elevator, before we sold the business, I was more hands off. I had a business manager that was running the day to day of the business, and I was a support mechanism for her. And she was amazing. She just took care of all the day to day and supported the team and supported the company. And I was able to mentor her and coach her.
Nice. Right.
And then I had several people that's worked with me over the years that went out and started businesses, and I helped them get started and help give them guidance and support. So that kind of all molded into, the book, and then what is next steps. So then Elevator Strategic Hub was born in my mind, going, I want to help people be strategic. Because one of the things that I think people struggle with when they start business is it's all about go, 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 get done, profit, profit, sell, sell,
Right.
profit, profit, which is important. But one of the things that I wish I had as I started Madden Elevator was a better framework about how to run the business effectively.
Hmm.
And I was fortunate enough again to go through and find some classes and find some books and find some tools out there that helped really reshape what made Madden Elevator successful towards the end. And, entrepreneurial operating system is one of them, EOS.
Right.
It's a
Hmm.
big system in the world, but it's coming more and more prevalent in this country.
Sure.
And then I used a product called 90, which was an online digital version, and was able to tweak it and change it to make it make sense for me at Madden Elevator, using my own terms and changing it to make sense for me. And we coupled those things together to make Madden Elevator successful. And these are the things I thought, and I really wish I had these things early on in my career,
Right.
early on in starting the business. So that's what kind of launched Elevator Strategic Hub. Like, want to be able to give tools, tips, and tricks and information and knowledge to essentially empower owners or
Right.
leaders of businesses to be able to decide if they want to use them or how they want to take them and use them. Just want to be there to support them and
Yeah.
build a community of people that want to help and support each other.
That's great. So you talked about wanting these tools, the strategic mindset early on. How big of a difference would you say it made on your business once you started to? And obviously you'd been at it several years, and so you'd learned some things, maybe just school of hard knocks or whatever. But when you started to apply strategic thinking to your business, how big of a difference did it make?
Well, that's a really good point. It made a huge difference. And I'll tell you a little story. I would go and read a book or, go to a class or talk to a mentor and get this great idea. I would come in and go, hey, guys, we're going to do this. Let's do this. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Get the team rallied together. We'd all, boom, we're going to do this. Everything's great. And then a week or two or a few weeks go by and I'd have another idea and I'd come in like, oh, it's really cool. We're doing that, but let's do this. And then we'd come in and do this. So I had somebody, actually, it's my niece, Cassie Robinson. She says, man, Sean, I love you to death. And, you've really helped us a lot, but you come in with all these crazy ideas all the time. And we're not sure which one to follow because, you're kind of all over the place. And it made me go out and try to find a system, a solution to help me. And that's when I found EOS.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
one of the things that EOS did for me as a business owner was help me harness all my ideas and help me put together a systemized framework of how I want to run the business. And by stepping back and making the team part of it, building the overall mission, vision, and values, strategies, when we're going to meet, how we're going to meet, and
Sure.
then what the plan was, what the goals were every quarter, but not letting me come in and throw something over the wall, as we call it. I couldn't come in
Yeah.
and just change direction and change plans. So instead of me coming in and driving the business and my leaders nuts, we had a system, we had a framework of how we ran the business, and they could call me out. They could say, listen, great idea. You're going to have to put it on the long term opportunities list because we'll have to talk about it next quarter. And I'm like, I know, but I want to do it now. So it
Yeah, no,
really helped
that's
me as a
great.
business. It really
Yeah,
did.
I think what you're describing is the difference between, you getting so ahead of your people that they're like, where is he? Right? He's way out there and we don't even know how to follow because he's so far ahead.
Right.
And yet
Yeah.
if you bring the team along, then you've got the synergy, the cohesion that all right, we're all on the same page, we're marching this direction. And I have some familiarity with that EOS because of a nonprofit that I work with. And they've used it in their meetings. So I've seen it in action. So very
Yeah,
cool.
it's a great system, and it's not all things for all people, and some people don't like it because it's rigidized, but that's one reason that you can do it differently through Elevator Strategic Hub and through our 90 portal. We actually have the ability to tweak it and change it. And we tweaked it for the elevator industry for our
Sure.
specific business, but there's also ability to tweak and change it for anybody's business because it really needs
Sure.
to be theirs. They need to own it
Sure.
and love it and tweak it to what makes sense for their business because their business is a living, breathing animal, and they want to, feed it with a framework that makes sense for them as a person and their team.
Oh, absolutely. It's got to be in a language that you all can understand so you can, yeah, embrace it and move with it. So Sean, tell me what you're doing right now.
So right now, I'm working with a Southern Elevator company. They're out of the Carolinas. Christopher Short's the president, and I'm working with them as their innovation manager. And essentially, we're developing InTelevator, which is a way to service elevators differently. And we're using technology and communication of information to services elevators differently and better right in public. There's
So is
going to be
that
a
are you
lot to come with that.
yeah, no, I'm very intrigued. Is this something you're manufacturing or using kind of existing technology to kind of create this service?
Well, it's a combination of a lot of different things, but we're using Lift AI. We're using a product to understand what's going on with the elevator and how much it's running, and where it's running, what floors. And then we're augmenting the service that we do to have key focuses on where to spend time doing services. And then we're coupling that with experience of the type of equipment, the type of facility, and what we need to be servicing, where we need to be servicing. So the whole big picture intent is to give a really clear information to the technician on how to effectively go service that elevator for that specific type of facility based on the information we're gathering from all these different points.
Oh, that's fascinating. Thank you.
No problem. It's exciting and fun, and they've been a great company to work with. The team is very excited about what we're doing with that, and I can't wait to see this unfold.
Thank you. And I'm curious, Southern Elevator, they're where are they based out of?
Greensboro, North Carolina, and they
Okay.
have 8 offices now. So it's a fast-growing company, a lot of opportunity. Recently purchased by Flexus Capital.
Okay.
So Flexus is a private equity firm that's supporting this initiative, and we're excited about where it's going to go in the future.
Yeah, that's very cool. So a couple other things I wanted to ask you about. I mean, obviously you've been around, you've done a lot of things, you're still doing a lot of things. Still kind of that question, all right, what's next? There may be even many more what's next, in your life. I'm curious though. I know you're currently the serving as the president of the NAEC, and that's got to be a totally different, viewpoint to be able to serve there. I'm curious, what are some of the things you find most rewarding about serving in that capacity?
Yeah. So NAC, I've been a part of this association for 30 plus years. Really didn't know what it was about when I was younger. But when I got, you know, Urban Elevator, Roger Urban brought me into those events and helped really show me how they could be so powerful because you're building the relationships with the people and the support mechanisms and learning a lot, obviously, along the way. And, I remember thinking a long time ago, God, it would be awesome to be part of that board one day. And having the opportunity to get on the board and having the opportunity to be voted in as the president, it was a little bit of a humbling experience. I'm like, wow, I can't believe I'm the president of our national association. So my goal, even in that capacity, is I want to support our industry. I want to support and give back and essentially make it better. If everybody that comes in, tries to find one or two or three things they can do to improve and make it better, it'll continually, perpetually get better and better and better. And sometimes over the years ago, there was some comments that had been made that, NAC kind of got stagnant, but it's not stagnant at all today. There's been a
Right.
lot of amazing changes, a lot of positive things happening in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And in the last few years, some of the huge things that's making a difference is, building out some LMS systems and, some of the educational things. And NAC is a support mechanism for the industry.
Sure.
And I have the opportunity to help drive that, to help support that. And we're going to be going through a full strategic planning session, which I'm extremely excited about because I'm very strategic minded. So this is going to be really fun for me. To get back to your question, probably the biggest thing is just giving back to the industry again, just
Right.
helping support the people that are supporting NAC and making sure that the association is doing what they want it to do and supporting them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. And I've noticed just I've only been a member a few years, but I've noticed a lot of improvements and changes. Like you said, it's not stagnant at all. Just in the last, probably 3 years or so that I've been involved. So
Cool.
that's awesome. Yeah. So I'm curious, as we kind of get near the end of this interview, having been in a lot of different places and done a lot of different things, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned throughout your career?
Biggest lessons. I'd say don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to walk up and talk to somebody that you might think is too big to talk to you, or pick up the phone and call somebody that you're like, oh man, they would never want to talk to me. It's amazing. This industry is a very niche industry, but even the leaders of this business, of this industry, they all are open to helping and supporting each other. And I've not ever seen anybody say, no, I'm not going to help you, or no, I don't know how to help you. So I think just being open to asking questions and being humble and really just trying to make a difference while also supporting, and don't be afraid to just pick up the phone and call people. Pick up the phone and call me. I'm always available. I love talking to people about the industry, and nobody has all the answers. So
Sure.
by asking questions to a variety of different people, you're going to get a variety of different answers. And then you can decide what is the best one that fits your specific situation.
Yeah, that's great advice. Is there a time in your career where you thought, man, I want to call so and so, but I'm afraid to do so, but you leaned into it and it made a difference for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Several times. I remember being in the field and, heard amazing things about a mechanic, and then just not sure, like, how do I get a hold of? Of course, back then we had pagers, so I'm kind of giving my age away. But
Right.
today you can you can pick up the phone or you can get on LinkedIn or Facebook or some other social media platform and connect with them pretty easily. But yeah, I mean, being able to connect with people that are like-minded that could mentor you and help you and support you, I've always looked for those people that are in front of me and tried to connect with them and ask questions. And so I probably had 4 or 5 situations where I always looked ahead of, okay, I'm a supervisor. I want to be a manager. I want to spend some time with this person because they are doing a great job and they can help support me figuring out how I can be better at what I'm doing to be able to get to the next step.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I've noticed that a lot in this industry that to me, it's more of a community. It's more, it's not just an industry, but everybody knows everybody. So it would seem, and it does
Right.
pay dividends to get to know people, to have conversations, to build your own network.
Yeah, absolutely. And, another quick little story. I was at an elevator convention. Another really important reason why it's important to come to these shows and conventions. Standing in line, talking to one of my employees, and we're dealing with a situation about an elevator cab. And I've told this story many times, but essentially somebody heard me, turned around and said, "Who are you dealing with?" And said, "No, that's never going to happen. You're never going to get that product. You need to walk away while you can and just go find another solution, or I'll see if I can help you find another solution. But I'm
Hmm.
telling you right now, it's not going to happen." And I was like, that's really odd. Like, why is he throwing that out? Well, doing research and due diligence, and yeah, that's what exactly was happening. And they helped me figure out how to solve it. So just a random situation at the elevator convention and somebody I didn't even know, and now I'm really good friends with. It's really cool.
Just offering some help that unsolicited in this case.
Exactly. But luckily he heard the name. I don't want to say the name of the person, but luckily he heard the name and was like, no, that's never going to happen. It's like,
Good
wow,
to know if it's
how did
really
they?
never going to happen, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's been very fortunate about, my career and the people I've met and the people that supported me. And, you can pick up the phone and call just about anybody in this industry and they're going to call you back and say, how can I help you?
Right.
And that's pretty impressive in my mind.
It really is. Again, back to the community that people care, they respect each other, and it's quite remarkable. Even my experience, I had a client a few years ago, invite me to go to the NAEC conference in the spring, and I said, well, I kind of feel like an outsider, even though I've been recruiting for 10 plus years in the industry. And he's like, shut up, just come. And so I did, and was just very surprised at how welcome I was, how willing people were to just come up and talk and, hey, welcome, glad to see you. And I just didn't expect that. Having worked in other industries, I've never found a niche that's as friendly, as open, as willing to talk, like you say.
That's good to know. I've been in this industry my whole life and I've heard that from people before, but it's good to know that you actually experienced that. And, it's interesting that all of us that are competitors, we're also friends. And there's enough work out there for good people. And the people that aren't good people typically don't last in our industry.
Right.
So, the good thing is we help and support each other in every way. And there's plenty of work out there for everybody. You don't have to be nasty about it. So I think that's one special thing about our industry.
Oh, it's very special. Yeah. I mean, one of my first jobs right out of college, I was working for a, totally different industry. I was, in human resources, but I just remember the way we viewed competition is we were just kind of enculturated to just hate them, right? They're just the bad guys. And it never really, I didn't really buy into that, but at the same time, that was just kind of the motto, right? I mean, it was a little odd, but
Yeah.
it's really refreshing to find a group that we don't need to be that way, and we can all succeed
Right.
together.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's great. So last question, and this may be a little bit redundant, but I'm just curious, what advice would you give to maybe somebody who's just starting out? Maybe they don't even, know much about the industry, but as they look ahead, what would you encourage them to do?
Encourage them to do. So be curious, ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid to reach out to somebody that, you know, you might think is above you, but pick up the phone and call them. They're going to help you. They're going to support you. And, probably more than anything, just continually learn. It's a lifelong journey of learning
Sure.
this industry, any industry really. Um, you know, and the one thing I love about this industry, even when I was in the field, is it's a very humbling industry. You know, just when you feel like you got a handle on something, some hiccup will come and remind you don't. So I love challenges and I love learning and growing and I love fixing and problem solving. So it's been a great industry for me for those reasons. If somebody's just looking for consistency, then this is probably isn't their industry. But it's a very it can be a humbling industry too. So always be curious about how you can learn and how you can support in the future.
Very good. Very good. Sean, thank you so much for being with me today. I appreciate your time. It's always an honor. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate everything, Matt. It's been a great conversation. So appreciate everything. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Thank you for listening to the Elevator Careers podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group, a leader in elevator industry recruiting. You can check us out online at elevatorcareers.net. Please subscribe, and until next time, stay safe.